This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com, and this is my weekly review of the news I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. It's much more detailed than this, but there's a lot of information in it that I just, quite frankly, don't care about. So I only tell you the part that I like. You can always subscribe to it if you want to know more. Let me start with the WWE news. Vince McMahon was at the Performance Center on July 1st. No news out of that other than he was there with Bruce Pritchard, the WWE president, Nick Khan, and the head of WWE Talent Relations, John Laurinaitis. It did come out that WWE is looking for wrestlers around 26, 27 and under, over 6'2", and over 220 pounds. So it looks like the gymnastics era of small wrestlers might be coming to the end in WWE as they're realizing those wrestlers aren't drawing. Mind you, I don't know how much good quality talent is out there anymore. And for wrestlers that haven't really wrestled anywhere other than the WWE system and have come out of the Performance Center, I don't really have much faith of them being the next Austin or whatever, because where wrestlers actually develop their interest in character most of the time is on the road and going through the hardships of the road and having to live off of low pay and so forth. So who knows what the future of the business is going to hold. Fast 9 that stars John Cena, the latest edition of the Fast and Furious franchise, was the biggest grossing first weekend for a movie since the pandemic. Grossed $70,043,165, was in 4,179 theaters. Of course, here in Ontario, theaters still aren't open. Neither are gyms for another 25 or so days, which sucks. So that's impressive considering it's not even available in a lot of places in theaters. The last Fast series, which came out in 2017, starring The Rock, grossed $99.8 million, so significantly more, but that was before COVID, so you can't really compare the numbers. WWE has officially announced they're returning to Madison Square Garden for a SmackDown taping on September the 10th. Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch got married on June 29th. Congratulations to them. I heard Becky Lynch on the Steve Austin's podcast, but I don't think I've ever seen her wrestle. Not a fan of Seth Rollins, but I can't argue that he's been very successful in the WWE. Sadly, Dale Wilkes, who I interviewed in 2018, he passed away yesterday at the age of 59 due to a massive heart attack. He had been a football star at the University of South Carolina and was known as the Patriot in pro wrestling, even though Tom Brandy goes around saying he was the Patriot and puts on the outfit and goes around to conventions. It was really Dale Wilkes who was the Patriot in WWE and WCW. I really don't have any respect for Tom Brandy for doing that. And Dale had hard feelings about it, as he talked about in his interview with me. For a while there, the Honky Tonk Man actually was going around to conventions and having his son dress up as the Patriot too and sign autographs as the Patriot, which is pretty bizarre. Wilkes had a lot of drug problems over the years, which he was open about. I heard him on Steve Austin's podcast talking about it. Painkillers, steroids, and cocaine. He claimed that he was taking 100 pain meds a day when he was in WWE, which is just a crazy amount. to not die from. So it's no wonder his heart eventually gave out. So it's unfortunate that the drugs probably shortened his life. He even spent some time in jail due to his addictions related to a domestic assault charge that he was charged with and found guilty of during his time where he was an addict. WWE cut 14 wrestlers this past week. Most of them are not a surprise. Actually, all of them aren't really a surprise. The biggest name being Tyler Breeze and Fandango are the two most notable ones. The Bollywood Boys, who at one point were Jinder Mahal's sidekicks, were also released. Most of them, other than I think one, were small wrestlers, which shows you that WWE is starting to cut back on the huge amount of small wrestlers they've been hiring and had under contract. Many of them were in their 30s, and Dave Meltzer notes that none of them were considered to have main roster potential due to their size and age. The company announced they're doing 4 shows in the United Kingdom, September 19th in Newcastle, September 20th in London, 21st in Cardiff, Wales, and September 22nd in Glasgow, Scotland. Apparently, the total sold for Cardiff has already been 4,500 out of 4,800. Glasgow has sold 5,600. Newcastle has sold 7,200 out of 8,400. So the long absence of WWE in the UK has certainly helped them there. I'm very curious to see what the independent scene is going to be like in Canada once it opens up everywhere. It's starting to open up in some provinces, such as Alberta. But as far as Ontario, I don't even know if it's going to open up for independent shows this year. Quebec, you could technically have them outside during the summer, but not inside yet. And I'm not really sure about the other provinces. Ronda Rousey, who's 34 now, announced that her baby that's due in September is going to be a girl. Samoa Joe said recently on Ryan Satin's podcast that his current job since being rehired in NXT includes being a talent scout and administrator. AEW this week, back on Wednesday nights, only did a 0.2, and they had 1,350 fans in attendance with 1,100 paid, so pretty good attendance. Raw did 0.41, which tied their second lowest all-time rating. Tied their lowest all-time rating, not their second lowest. 0.41 tied their lowest all-time rating. So it was a very bad number for Raw. SmackDown did a 0.54. And for the people that bring up why ratings matter, as I've said a bunch of times, in theory, if ratings keep going down, they're not going to have their TV contracts renewed for the huge amounts that they're currently worth, in theory. So a lot of their revenue comes from TV deals that they have that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So if they ever lose those hundreds of millions of dollars a year TV deal, that will be a hit to their budgets. One of the reasons why AEW has had, if you want to call it success, even though interest has gone down since they debuted, but they're still a very healthy company, even though they haven't made money yet. They're in no danger of going out of business because they're funded by a guy worth $14 billion, but a huge chunk of their revenue comes from the TV deal that AEW has which they were able to get through the connections that the Khan family have. In UFC news, Sarah Alpar, a fighter, had to start a GoFundMe this past week looking for $30,000 to pay for food and living expenses, gym fees, doctor fees, and supplements and other training expenses for her next fight. And she already raised more than $38,000. $25,000 came from Triller, which is a boxing promotion, and $5,000 came from Jake Paul, who said, quote, "Imagine a rookie in the NBA having to start a GoFundMe to play. I let Sarah Alpar know she has my support and contribution. It's my honor and privilege to help fellow fighters any way I can," end quote. Triller said, quote, "We are honored to help Sarah as she continues her march towards becoming world champion. Sarah and many underpaid UFC fighters are starting at a disadvantage when they have to work multiple other jobs while putting their bodies and brains through the most rigorous training one can imagine. It's sad to see such a talented fighter making less than the UFC ring card girls," end quote. That's from Thriller Boxing's Peter Khan. Lots of Khans in the combat sport world. Apparently, this girl's last two fights fell through for various reasons, and she's been working as a barista at a Starbucks to make a living, despite being under UFC contract because she hasn't had any fights. Fedor Emelianenko has announced that he's going to return for an October 23rd show in Moscow, Russia at the VTB Arena. This will be the first time Bellator has run in Russia. No opponent has been announced, but Jake Hager, a.k.a. Jack Swagger from WWE, who's now in AEW, wants this fight. And for the people that say it would be a bad fight for him, not many would expect Hagar to win. So he doesn't have like anything to lose from that standpoint, because if he loses, it's against Fedor. And if he wins, he's had a huge upset, and it'll make him an immediate star in the MMA world. He'd get a huge payday for that type of fight. So I did know him a little bit when I was in Deep South with him, and I hope he gets the fight. I don't know if he will or not, but I think it'd be a good fight for Fedor as well. And Stephan Bonner was on the World Class Pro Wrestling podcast that I do every Thursday last night, and Stephan Bonner agreed that that would be a good fight for Jake. So I hope he gets it, because I would like to see that. I'll put this up because I got some controversy over this. I got 3.1 million views for June on the Hannibal TV, which is nearly a million more than Ring of Honor had, and I beat MLW and NWA and all of Conrad Thompson's podcasts and my shoot interview competition. And some people said, well, Hannibal, and by the way, I've been number one in shoot interviews for a long time. And some people say, oh, well, you shouldn't brag because, you know, Ring of Honor could take you over one day. Then how are you going to look? Here's my standpoint of it. I am the underdog. I admit that I'm not going to be number one forever. Nobody can stay number one forever. But I am the underdog. That's like me beating Roy Jones Jr. in a boxing match that I tried to get and then not wanting to talk about it because, hey, if we have a rematch, Roy Jones might beat me in the rematch. Of course, I'm going to let people know that I beat companies such as Ring of Honor, NWA, and MLW that are funded by a lot, like by, in some cases, multi-million-dollar companies such as Sinclair Broadcasting that owns Ring of Honor, or Billy Corgan, the multi-millionaire. a rock star that owns NWA. Of course I'm going to brag about it. If I don't do it, nobody's going to. So toot, toot, toot. My own horn, as Kurt Hennig would say, one of the all-time greats. Master Joe 3000 says, to keep up the good work. Roland Curtis said Zelina Vega returned on SmackDown. Yes, she did. I read that, and I forgot about it. Of course, she had the big controversy, as Piper wants to come up and say hi. She had the big controversy related to complaining about WWE having issues with wrestlers on social media. As I'm fading a little bit, there we go. So she's back. And it has come out that WWE has wanted minorities. And she is Spanish. Not that Spanish is really a minority, but they want more demographic, racial demographics. They've publicly stated that. So I'm not surprised they brought her back. Roland Curtis tipped me $5. Thank you, Roland. He says Zelina Vega returned and took a shoot slap. Perhaps that was written in as some discipline from Vince for running her mouth. However, the slap was nothing like the slap that I did to Funk. That's very true. WWE will pay their wrestlers back via booking. I mean, when Sable came back after her lawsuit with Vince, didn't she have to make out with Zach Gowen and do some sexual stuff with Vince and so forth? So they do get their revenge on people. As much as they like to say they're this big, happy family, they are very vengeful. By the way, Boris Zukov, I'm doing an interview with tomorrow, Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern. I was supposed to interview Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker from the WCW power plant that used to run it yesterday, but he has to reschedule. Michael says, what's up, brother? Big Mac 420, Chicago. Nice to see you. I like all of my 420 brothers out there. Nicholas, happy Friday. Hope all is well with you. Other than the gyms still being closed here for another 25 days, I'm doing great. Says longtime YouTube subscriber, now following us on our Facebook page, which, by the way, these streams are all ad-free if you go to the Hannibal TV's Facebook page. Caveman says, I should try to interview Valdemir, the super fan from the old WWE days. Great channel. Keep it up. I would interview him if you put me in contact with him. And thank you for the $5 tip. I put all these tips towards interviews. As Bera7331 tips me $5 towards shoot interviews. Thank you, Bera. Dr. Smith X says free Canada. I agree. Well, Ontario is the only province that's still locked down. Screamin' Baboom says gyms are open in Australia tomorrow. Scott Bork says Abdullah the Butcher is out of Forks. Apparently his wife, who he hasn't lived with in about 10 years, is also interested in divorcing him. So he's a real scumbag. He lives with another woman. Life insurance facts and hacks says hello. Raj, you'll have to ask that when I have Boris tomorrow. It will be live. The real Ian Co says MSG is the place to go, Knicks. Not really a basketball fan. If I was, I'd have to go for LA, where, by the way, I should talk about this. I can't believe I almost forgot to bring it up, that PCW Ultra is returning, where Alex Hammerstone is the champion of PCW Ultra. They are going to be returning this fall. And I know a lot about it, but a lot of it's going to have to be kept secret for now, but it's going to be happening in LA this fall. Terry M says RIP to the Patriot. Nicola, my wrestling name is Hannibal, and I haven't wrestled since 2018. Jason L, well, as I said, as far as the lockdown, you can now tan, which are tanning salons have been proven to cause skin cancer, but you can't work out. Make sense of that. You can also get tattoos. They put getting tattoos and eating donuts. The donut shops are now open above working out. Wrestling tips me $1. Thank you. Every bit counts. Alan Kesselman says drugs kill. Well, New Jack and the Patriot are examples of that. Terry M mentions that the Patriot also wrestled in the AWA as Trooper. MT Shore asking about Jenny Santana. Funny enough, she sent me her second training video blog today, just before I started this, and she will be continuing her training. She'll be starting in the future with world-class pro wrestling, or who knows where else, but I'm a supporter of hers and I consider her a friend. Adrian says weed doesn't kill you. That's true. Thank you, Ladin. Nicola smokes weed every day. Jimmy says 14 wrestlers. Wow. They have so many wrestlers under contract, though. They really do need to cut the fat. I do think there should be a very high turnover of wrestlers. If they don't get over, they should be released. Why not? Ivan brings up that the Colognes are starting a new company in Puerto Rico. I've heard that WWC has finally went out of business, which would make sense why the kids might be starting up their own company. Has that company finally gone out of business after having issues with paying talent for decades and allowing a murder to happen in their dressing room and basically, from what it looks like, very possibly participating in the cover-up? Tiffany says hello from Indy. I don't know where you mean by Indy. That could mean Indiana, India, who knows. BK checking in from Louisiana. Speaking of Louisiana, I will be covering the Carthage, Texas Bruiser Brody Cup November 5th and 6th, which is very close to Shreveport, Louisiana. So many stars are going to be there, including J.J. Dillon, Kevin Nash, Psycho Sid, Honky Tonk Man, Money Incorporated. It's going to be the biggest fan fest in Texas of 2021. Steve Blackman, shoot. He wanted a hell of a lot of money. A hell of a lot of money. More than I could afford right now. So I'll need more than maybe I've got, I don't know, $15 in tips so far. I'm going to need a lot more than $15 in tips to pay for that Steve Blackman shoot. Nicholas, yes, Bill Eddy is recovering. I was the first one to report that he was recovering. And I heard that directly from Billy Graham. High Octane Neil watching on our Great North Wrestling Twitch channel, at Great North Wrestling on Twitch, which is also ad-free. Grant Cameron, the name sounds familiar. Isn't he in the movies? I don't know. I don't really know who he is, no. Screaming Baboons thinks WWE's issue is stupid, unbelievable storyline. Wendell, I'm hoping to reschedule it. He said he was going to reschedule it, but he didn't give me a date. Bill says what everyone was saying about WCW 20 years ago is what's true about WWE today. Well, WCW, can you believe it? They closed down in like March 2001. So they were already closed 20 years ago. It's been over 20 years. But I watched WCW until the end. Whereas I can't even watch the WWE highlights now without getting bored. I can't even sit through 3 minutes of highlights. And somebody actually wrote, Hannibal, how do you know the storylines are so bad if you only watch the highlights? Well, because the highlights don't make me want to watch the whole show. It's just like if I watch a trailer for a movie, if I don't like the trailer, I'm not going to watch the movie. So if the highlights are like nails on a chalkboard to watch, then I'm not going to watch the show. Sorry. Thank you, Steven. Appreciate it. Todd says Billy Jack Haynes is getting married July 17th. That is a scoop. Where did you hear that? I haven't heard anything from Billy Jack for over a year, so fill us in. Raj says Piper is spoiled. Yes, she is the ruler of my household. Roberto Bravo says this is his favorite wrestling channel. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's my favorite wrestling channel too, by the way. Although I will suggest that if you guys want to help out World Class Pro Wrestling, which is relaunching this fall, October 3rd in Wichita, Kansas, and there's going to be an official September date soon, but Stephan Bonner is the champion. The Blood Hunter is part of World Class Pro Wrestling. Jacob Fatu is going to be part of it. They're putting together a great roster, so if you want to help them out, go to the World Class Pro Wrestling YouTube channel and subscribe. There is some good content on there, and we're collaborating right now. So there's a crossover of our content. Lavar says, keep up the good work. Thank you. Appreciate it. Raj, I think Uncle Elmer is dead. Stevie TV believes that when they took the F out of WWE, it went downhill. I think, honestly, you can pinpoint the time when they went downhill is when they went public. Ever since they went public, they got more and more corporate. Wrestling tips me $2 towards the Steve Blackman shoot fund. Well, let's multiply that by 2,000, and we'll be good to go for Steve Blackman for what he wants. Ladin says he used to be a projectionist, and a good rule of thumb that he teaches people is if the movie trailer sucks, the movie is terrible. Sometimes the movie trailer actually shows all the good parts, and that's it, and it sucks. I agree with that. John believes that they had Brody whacked. I truly believe that there was money issues involved with the whole Brody death, that they owed him money. So there's a lot of shady stuff, and I do hope WWC actually went out of business. They've been a very shady company, and I have firsthand dealings with how shady that they are. Todd says Billy is marrying his mom here in Portland. Well, Todd, get Billy Jack to do a video interview with me, because the fans want an update with him. Herb says bingo, I think related to what I just said about Brody. And by the way, Herb is going to be at that Brody Cup, as well as the Blood Hunter, managed by the beautiful Blaze. So don't miss that. Carthage, Texas, November 5th and 6th.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us